And there you are, Hidden Nation. It's so good to see you. Boy, are you in for an absolute treat on this episode. Welcome into the studio. It is Josh Cary here. It's your Hidden Entrepreneur. Hidden Nation, perhaps you can see and hear me. I just spent some time speaking with our guest, comparing some notes, and there is so much good here. It is a lot. And on the surface, that doesn't even begin to explain who and what we are in for today. Let's get right to it. Hidden Nation, we're joined by our guest, William Demps. He is the author of the book, Imagination Volume 1. He is also a combat veteran of the U.S. Navy, now working in Hollywood, doing all sorts of great things to put all kinds of good energy into the world. William, welcome to the program.
Pleasure to meet everybody. I wish everyone to have a good time with this video.
I appreciate the setting of the tone and the energy. We're going to get into this in a moment. The fact that you are also a professional psychic and you did a little reading and energy healing on me, which was spectacular. We'll touch upon that in a little bit. You spent 3+ years in the U.S. Navy fighting for the good country here. But I want to first position it of this book, Imagination Volume 1. It says that this is a nonfiction novel posing worldly questions and investigates what can truly be made from nightmares to dreams through one's imagination. I love all of that, but what really does that mean?
So again, we think about what we do with our lives, right? Everything that's on this planet has been imagined. It came through somebody's head, be that bread, be that the road. Somebody had to imagine through their head, and guarantee you this, there was a lot of monkeying around trying to figure out how things work. This is not a perfect science, right? If you worked as I did, as a hydraulic hose fabricator, oftentimes we had to bring in hoses that were completely just mangled and destroyed from who knows where it came from. And we had a makeshift, which is just a nice way of saying, get existing parts, put it together, make something happen and make it work. We had to send something out. If it came back, that was a very bad thing. If it went out into the world and we never heard from the customer again, that was a good thing. It's a similar philosophy with food. You have to make something with a lot of love. You have to take existing parts, be that a chicken breast, or in my case, as an actual baker. Take yeast, take flour, take water, mix it together, beat it into a bloody pulp, let it rest, let it proof, and then you bake it and you send it out into the world. And we hope we don't ever see that loaf of bread ever come back because it needs to do its job. And that's where we're at with Imagination Volume 1. When I wrote this book, I wanted people to investigate what's going on with themselves and what they're projecting out into the world. What's really interesting with entertainment, especially in the academic realms, we have so many people that are thinking very in a closed-minded box sense. One case in point, is a very brutal thing to say, but it's equally true. We have the LGBT community, we have the transgender community, we have these people thinking within a box, and they're proclaiming through a channel in a box and trying to come out. This doesn't work. Real life doesn't work that way. We have relationships with people. If you were to go to a car lot, for example, you have to make deals. You have to talk to people and figure out what car that you could purchase with a car loan, as well as what car you can actually run with. And real life with relationships, you're not going to be able to waste a car dealer's time, right? A lot of people are screwing around. They're trying to figure out what works with what. If you're trying to find something, you have to make a decision and find something. With Imagination Volume 1, I wanted people to get deep into their imagination, deep into their thinking process, and figure out what they're doing. What are they doing on their social media? What are they doing on their video games? What are they doing in real life? And these things matter. You have to take your life seriously, and that's a challenge because you're going to have failures. You're going to have mistakes. You're going to be making investments in the things that are going to fail. Not everything is going to be sunshine and rainbows. We just came out of post-COVID. Everybody got hit in a particular grotesque, really messed up ways. And I'm not talking about looking up goofy videos, in relation to the COVID vaccine, reactions or people getting hit by COVID. But we're in a very different time right now. What we do with our bodies matters. We have a physical body, and again, we have a spiritual body. And we have to figure out what we're doing with both and how we walk in this earth, continue the gene pool and continue with life. And right now, unfortunately, we have my way or the highway. one of the things that I want to talk about in Imagination Volume 1, I think I wrote this briefly about my dead mother. She actually died of cancer of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was a type of blood cancer. And me and my younger sister, Catherine, when I was 16 and she was 14, we saw her entire death process. She threw up her teeth, lost her hair because of the chemotherapy. She became a walking skeleton, that goofy nonsense. Things happen on this planet. This is a very random and crazy place. I am totally admitting that as a weatherman at the US Navy. My job was to look at chaos and crazy out in the fleet. I have seen very crazy weather phenomenon. I have seen hailstones this big, even bigger. I've seen lightning. I have seen water spouts come out of the ocean, multitudes just being totally batshit crazy, and you are not going to be able to scream at it to tell it to not be insane. It's where we're at. This is the reality that we live at. And with Imagination Volume 1, I want people to take a serious personal investigation with themselves. What are you doing with yourselves? What are you doing with another person? How are you behaving on the road? How do we as a species continue to move forward? And you're not going to be able to say, because I am a certain, political correctness or DEI personality proclivity disorder, where I'm going to say I am non-binary and that's the reason why the universe it is. That's not how real life works. As a multiracial, my dad's Black and Korean and my mom is French and Cherokee. I've had, kind of brutal conversation with both sides of the family, including knowing with my dad's side with the Koreans that all the men were shamans. And on my mom's side, if you have Native American in your system, you're already open to the spirit world. So I already came into this world from two different points on looking at spirit. So with formal training as a Reiki master, obviously I do tarot readings. I do know how to interact with people's spirits. I will get to a problem quickly as fast as I can, whether I'm busting out red or I'm, doing a personal reading with somebody. I'm always going to recommend going to the doctor whenever I see that there's something medically going on that's wrong. But we do have a spiritual body. There are things, just like there's 50,000 different types of ticks, 20,000 different types of scorpions. This is where we're at. And, real life is a blessing. I really want people to read this book and be like, what can I do with myself to create a heaven on earth? What can I do to make positivity? And instead of trying to copycat what you see what other people are doing, find out what works for you and build your house. I think for a lot of people right now, especially post-COVID, people don't know who they are or what they are. And I think people need to just, as easy as this is, as painful as it is, just talk to your local grocery person and say, hi, how are you doing? We don't really have a lot of that right now in the real world, regardless if you're living in the city, regardless if you're on Tinder, regardless if you're, in the local suburbs. People are not talking to each other. And people really showed their colors during COVID, being in combat, especially with the USS Gunston Hall. People are going to show their true colors during combat, before combat, and what happens after combat. And unfortunately, what I would tell the White House is that you can't teach courage as much as you can't teach talent. And with that set in mind, people showed their colors and did what they did during that combat situation all the way up to the White House. I'm in the clear. I didn't do anything wrong all the way up with Veterans Affairs. However, I still carry the scars of what happened, and it bled into my work, and especially with all my artistic endeavors, which you saw with the first page. That had the three leading protagonists. We had Guy Salt from Kindle Perusia, Grace Ferris from Fantasia GT, and Lumen 10 from Emerald Decade. Kindle Perusia has been completed as a graphic novel, and Emerald Decade is on its last leg of being completed. We're literally working on the back cover as we speak. We have about 293 pages with Dorrance Publishing as a 70-page potential book to be sold at Books A Million and some other vendors. And you just got to push forward and see where things are going to happen. And what I want from people, wherever that this story goes, I want positivity to happen. I want people to take a serious chill break with their mind, with their body, and their spirit. Figure out what you want out of life and make serious decisions. You cannot be participating with hookup culture and thinking that's going to be the way of the path of success. You cannot play rent a car, rent a sex organ, do Uber life for the rest of your life. You have to make decisions. This is where we're at. You have to make decisions with people. You have to communicate with people and be real with what you want. And right now, We are not having that on this planet. We're just not having that. People are not communicating in ethical and humane ways. And as a disabled veteran, as someone who's, disabled with Veterans Affairs and, just participating in the market, whether I tell people or not, civilians are behaving very badly. They are behaving, the younger girls, 10 to 42, you could be older. The men are just behaving Neanderthal all over the place. Thank God we have the video game industry making video games, because we need these outlets to make things come true where people can participate in reality and have positive experiences. People are going to talk shit on Mortal Kombat. It's what it is. It's just what it is. It can be funny. It can be very funny. People are just having locker room talk. That's perfectly normal for people just to jab each other in the chest. It's normal. It happens in the workplace. Don't be so thin-skinned, And that's a tricky conversation in any creative environment. How do you say something offensive without being offensive, right? That's the same conversation if you were a medical licensed doctor, even with me as a psychic, that I have to get in behind somebody who's like, why are you doing this? And then they're going to have to tell the truth, like, yeah, I was totally doing that. It's like, stop doing that. Stop doing it right now. Now means now, not in 5 minutes. But that's where I want people to go with imagination. Just have a good time with it. Figure out what's going on with yourself. Go in your local grocery store. Analyze what's going on with your rice cooker. Analyze what's going on with what's going on in the grocery store. And one of the things I wrote about in the very end of the book, especially when it came with the last chapter, I was trained as a baker when I was in high school. And again, it takes 20 seconds to wash your hands. People are not washing their hands for 20 seconds. I know it. I worked out of a gas station. People can be very filthy. This is that conversation. People need to wash their hands for 20 seconds. This is not the medical community where you go up your arms, up to your elbows. You need to wash your hands for 20 seconds. Do it and be done with it. Just do it and be done with it. If we have to have that conversation about the birds and the bees, there are men and women. This is where we're at. We have parts. If you worked in any mechanical environment, there are male parts, there are female parts. That's what it is. You cannot interchange between the two. It's what it is. You have to figure out who you're going to mingle with and who you are not going to mingle with. This is where we're at. Everybody tastes differently. Everybody smells differently. As a combat veteran, there was a lot of very nasty smells in a very combat situation when people are bleeding and defecating and urinating and some other stuff. One thing that I would like to, share was what happened with a man that died when I was in combat. And this was a very traumatic experience. Literally, just explain the conversation for what it is. I was hauling tail 12 hours into Haiti. I was wearing the rubber gloves, sweating like a dog. My coveralls were just completely destroyed. And this UN truck came in, looked like it came from the 1950s. Where it comes from, what? That's what combat is. How did this get here? You're going to track something that came from chaos. And, the doctor that came in, he was white with longer, black hair. And he pulled up this Haitian and he explained to us, we made him comfortable, but he's getting ready to die. And when I looked at the person, I literally had to give him a good scan, right? He was wrapped up like a mummy. He had gangrene and pus everywhere. He looked like a jacked up mummy. And he was getting ready to die, and he did. This is where we're at with life. Gas stations explode during earthquakes. People do crazy things during crises. This is where we're at. There are emergency situations, and yes, it is very hard to deal with emergency crises. People are going to show what they're going to do in an emergency, including if you were working at Walmart like I did and somebody calls an actual bomb threat and everybody has to evacuate the store and a third of the customers can't speak English and you're rushing people. It's like, get the fuck out of the store right now. Right now. That's how real life is. It's a very complicated place. It's a joy to be here, just like living in a Disneyland for a couple of years, but you have to take things seriously and enjoy your life. I'm getting ready to actually write Imagination Volume 2. I have actually never been infected with COVID, and Veterans Affairs has my medical background. So it's like, what do you think COVID has been like for other people, with people that including as a Reiki master, just getting behind people and just doing stuff? There's a lot of crazy things in the air. It's just what it is, and everybody has to do their part. And one thing that I'm going to tell the women, and I'm going to be very harsh about this, it takes 4 people to man a stretcher in combat. I don't give 2 shits about, because I said it takes a man to man a stretcher in combat. 4 people to a stretcher, that's what it takes to take 1 person to the helo. A man cannot be a woman cannot be a man, and a woman cannot be a man at the same time to lead a household. It doesn't work that way, right? You need 2 people. That's just what it is. It's just what it is. And what I want people to know with Imagination Volume 1, when my mom died of cancer, she was a single parent. So going to work and throwing up your teeth was not a very pleasant experience. And I invite any feminist to challenge me on that conversation. If they think they can handle throwing up their teeth and going to work out of Kroger, that they think that they can handle it all. So I'm going to guarantee you this. I can take 1 sheet of paper, turn that into an anvil in 5 minutes and break your arm. We're not going to have this conversation. We're going to have a conversation about what you're doing with your body and take responsibility. It's a very harsh conversation. It's a very tough conversation. Imagination is a very tough book, but I want people to understand toughness in life. If you don't have to do something stupid, don't do it. This is the great. Oh, you go ahead.
Yeah. What is your outlook in terms of the meaning of life? And what I'm asking is, when you said you saw your mother go through all that, and then you saw crazy, weird things in the ocean, in combat, do you have the vision and impression that life is just a series of somewhat meaningless, random events and acts that we have to figure out how to best play a part? Or is it all strategically detailed for specific reasons?
So that it's actually a bit of both. If you threw a bag of popcorn in the microwave, you threw the bag of popcorn in the microwave because you wanted a bag of popcorn. And no mathematician is going to be able to explain to me how many different types of popcorn have been existing on planet Earth. That's just what it is. I challenge Dr. Peterson to answer that question. If he can answer how many different types of popcorn have come out of the popcorn packs on this planet, you're never going to be able to do it. As someone who was a weatherman in the Navy, all the clouds in the sky overhead have been manifesting ice crystals before the dinosaurs were shitting out eggs that were individual in nature, and they were also, to this day, discharging electricity and making snow. It's a bit of both. And when you get on the road and what you're doing with your time, whether you're going to Walmart, your job, a date, whatever, you have to be conscious about what you're doing. And at the same time, understand there are things outside of you that are going to sometimes intentionally screw with you, and sometimes it's going to be a crazy tornado that just does this. That's where we're at. If you were to play Final Fantasy 14 like I do, sometimes you're going to run into a raid, like the final raid that just came out with patch 7.1. I'm going to run in as a gunbreaker. That's a tank class. The white mage or the healer is going to be new. You're going to be playing a potential raid with some other people. With 4 people, it's supposed to be 20 minutes, turned into 40 minutes. And guess what? Everybody had to learn something. We're all here to learn something. Real life is a positive experience. There is a destined plan. It is not perfect. Perfection is not real. That is a myth. It's completely insane. You're never going to find something that's completely 100% perfect. There are gems, just like there are gems, out of, the earth, whether you're talking about diamonds or whatever. But that's kind of the question, what is value? And nobody has been able to answer that question, especially when you're making deals with people and what people find to be of value. And when I think about Imagination Volume 1, I want people to really feel themselves and figure out what they're doing in the line in the sand, what they're doing with their children, if they want children, and to be very real with that. I think for a lot of people, real life is worth living. This is a very positive place to be at. Going to Disneyland is fun. Going to a 9-to-5 job can be a very shitty experience. Some customers are very insane. They will try to, I'm just going to say it for what it is. Some people are just cat shit insane. They are batshit insane. They're going to try and say, hey, you're supposed to service me a service out of this grocery store. You're calling the wrong department, and I can't answer your question because you called the wrong department. And they're going to try and find fault with you. This is where we're at. People are kind of crazy. Things are really kind of chaotic. That's just what it is. It's just what it is. And again, real life is worth living. We need to have that experience to understand that. You cannot be floundering around in the background, just goofing off, being stupid. You know, including if you're being stupid with a bunch of random people that you don't know, have positive conversations with people. You know, one of the things that's been really disturbing for me, especially, you know, not with this interview, but I've just been seeing some crazy stuff on TikTok. I don't really participate with that environment, but I will say this. The Chinese typically in Black communities will sell beauty products to the Black community. As someone who's multiracial and who's Black, I've seen it, you know, and oftentimes Black women do not have straight hair. It's what it is. It's just, I've had my afro when I will grow it out will get this big. It's what it is. And, you know, they will sell hair that is made out of horse or actual human hair to make these people look, you know, these women look beautiful, whether they have alopecia, whatever's the reason why they're going bald, that's what it is. You know, we have a lot of people right now that are being given, you know, platforms, and I thank you so much for this interview just to illustrate this point. When we think about participating, you cannot abuse what you've been given, right? So we can't be going around running out the mouth and being totally insane, thinking that my way or the highway, intellectually or emotionally speaking, is the way that things go. Even with Imagination Volume 1, I was holding back on some topics, but I was trying to tell things in a very tough and loving way. Again, when you're making cookies from scratch, and when we think about recipes and beauties and all these things, you can take a class of 30 students. They can be given the same recipe, right? And all the students are going to have 30 different types of cookies that they're making from scratch. And mind you, people in the North like crisper, harder cookies. There's a reason for that. People in the South like softer cookies. When I was writing Imagination Volume 1, just to hone in on this, people in the state of Virginia, which is where I'm living at, most people from Virginia are not from Virginia. This is a military-dominated state. So a lot of people are going to talk about what they know and don't know about history and, you know, whatever about Robert E. Lee, right? That's just while they renamed Fort Lee to be Fort, you know, whatever the new name is. And when we think about these things, sometimes the teacher is going to tell you something subliminally. I'll never get when my baking teacher, she said, when she said that, people in the, you know, the South like softer cookies. Whenever you're making cookies from scratch, the constitution or the amount of sugar that you put into the cookie is going to constitute its hardness. The more sugar that you put, the harder the cookie is going to be. So when I was given the recipe, I hijacked the recipe. Instead of putting, you know, 3 cups of sugar, 1.5 cups of brown and white sugar, I just did 1 of each. And I got a softer cookie. And I'll never forget when she said it, and she snapped my cookies. This is how these cookies are made, right? Sometimes people are going to tell you things and not tell you things, and you're going to have to read in between the lines. And some people are going to pick out and get different things. It's that same conversation whenever you read a book and you find something new that you've never seen before. This is a very crazy place. This is a very loving place, but people need to take themselves seriously and participate in the marketplace seriously. And that's just very hard to do, especially post-COVID. And what I want people to do is just take themselves and love themselves seriously, no matter what you've done, no matter what's going on with your life. Sometimes, you know, some days are new with rainy days, but you can make the best out of the day and you can make a positive impact on the world. And sometimes that just means giving some paint to some kids. That's just what it is. Some kids just want to paint. It's what it is. Just give them some paint. Let them be kind of crazy. Everybody's crazy with their imagination, and it's a fun time to be wild. You know, one of the things that's very interesting right now, especially with Buffalo Weight, we're honing on a character. I cannot mention the character's name. Buffalo Weight knows who it is. And we've had some very interesting relationships and conversations with some actors. And I'm very humbled that we made it this far with this particular character who does some very creative things. And I really wonder, especially where this character will fit out with Mortal Kombat 1 as a potential, you know, contender or character on the roster. I really feel this character can fit and be in places, and I would invite Ed Boon to read my graphic novel or request for an invitation to be given a PDF. That would be a very interesting conversation where things could go intellectually. And again, you know, make positive contributions to the world. You don't have to give tithes, you know, to the church every day, but be kind to your fellow man. We have a serious hatred right now from women to men right now in this country from feminism. Feminists have gone completely insane. You know, that, I mean, it's just very Neanderthal and nasty. As a multiracial, people don't think I exist, number one. And then number two, they don't want to give 2 seconds of communication to you because you're not 6 foot, 6 feet, and all that other six nonsense. And when I was in the military, it's what made it through combat to defend the country. People go on to combat for different reasons, including me illegally. And I say this in front of, former President Trump and Vice President Harris, knowing Trump's getting ready to go back into office. I do not regret going into combat because I served my country proudly. I was called into that situation illegally. I'm not taking it back. I will not take it back. And I did it for the woman that I love. And right now, we need to have love for our fellow man and love for our country right now, instead of trying to be right. This is a very crazy place. Women give birth to stillborn and dead children all the time. I've had some very goofy conversations as a psychic with IVF and some very nasty things in the toilet. I'm gonna leave it at that. And people need to make decisions with what they're doing with their time. This is a great place to live. It's going to be painful. Braces are a very terrible conversation. It's terrible to put braces on a child's teeth. It's terrible to see the goofy mechanical stuff to get their teeth straight. This is where we're at. It sucks. We need to love each other and be there for each other. I've done that as a combat veteran. I've done that as a professional baker when I'm feeding people, and whatever doesn't get sold gets donated to the homeless. This is a crazy place. People need to stop being so discriminatory because of social, financial, racial standing, and stop attacking themselves for attention. It's not funny to cut yourself. It's not funny to do that crazy self-mutilation nonsense. Just get help. It's very easy to do. You can do it privately. I encourage anyone to go to therapy. I've done it many times with Veterans Affairs. As someone who's participated with Veterans Affairs, especially through COVID, I am very blessed and honored to represent Veterans Affairs. And for any veteran with PTSD that, needs to get help, you need to do that right now. Get it done. Get your teeth pulled out. Get these emotional things pulled out. It's going to feel like them pulling teeth out of your head without Novocaine. It sucks. It does. It's just what it is. But at the end of it, you're going to feel a whole lot better. And sometimes, unfortunately, as someone who's worked in the medical field, and my family has worked in the medical field pretty much all the way up to the White House. My great-grandfather was an assistant surgeon general under late President Theodore Roosevelt and Woodrow Wilson. I have been given what he had to deal with the bubonic plague before World War I. That was some very creative stuff to read. This is a crazy place. People will lose their fingers. Boxes will knock your teeth out. This is a very hostile place. Real life is not a screen. It's kind of hypocritical because we're doing a video right now. And as someone who writes fiction, I'm working with artists. How do I make a scene or a screen look like this, right? That's just kind of what it is.
William Demps, we got to leave it there. You are absolutely a plethora of extraordinary intelligence and storytelling. I can't wait to have you back. Go into some of the topics we didn't even get a chance to hit on, dig deeper into the ones we did. But you, sir, are extraordinary. Thank you for giving of yourself and being part of this world. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I want the best for everyone involved. Let me know how your stuff is going on with your health, and just making sure your anxiety goes down. You just feel great about yourself. I want you to do very well with wherever you go, wherever that you're doing. And for all my new fans, I'm going to be making the best quality work that I can. I love you all very much. It's going to be a crazy, tough ride. All crazy Odyssey epics are wild, and I'm doing the very best that I can do to deliver quality work. And for all my fans in the gaming community, whether we're talking about the world famous Gary Spivey or Ginger Prime or whatnot, I love you all very much. And just God bless everyone and continue your journeys with life.